and have the ultimate upgrades available, but they're built with a purpose, for people with a purpose. Everyone's SUVs are decent when the roads are slick, but Plan B's SUVs are for when you want to make your own road through tough terrain, in a tornado, wearing a tuxedo, with a grizzly bear riding shotgun, holding a shotgun, and waving an American.
Hello, everybody on Facebook land. This has been McClintock from Defending Utah. We're going to be getting ready for our show right here in a couple of seconds after the commercial, so just stay tuned.
801-675-4321. That's 801-675-4321. Make Doomsday sweet and make your friends' jaws drop. Drive a real SUV from Plan B Supply.
Tribal West Lacrosse, player-owned and operated, serving the lacrosse community since 2002. Outfitting beginners to ballers, boys and girls.
Is it hard to find?
Year in-store anniversary upgrades. Tribal
Not
West
too bad off the
Lacrosse,
highway or off the street.
7 Eastern Stand, next to the Philadelphia Sandwich Shop. Check all the latest heads, meshes, and shafts in our improved turret shooting page. Check out your speed on the 24-inch radar display. Coaches, free gear with your team orders and player discounts. Team nights in our new Lax Lounge with a 55-inch TV where there's always a game on. Get your online team store set up today. Use it with a fundraiser. No more collecting money or sizes. Tribal West Lacrosse for all your lacrosse needs on and off the field. Check us out at tribalwest.com or call us at 801-501-0880.
Here we go.
You are listening to Defending Utah Radio. Think right and wrong, not right and right. To learn more or become a member of Defending Utah, visit defendingutah.org.
We can keep track of everything you do as a consumer, and we are keeping track.
Two contending forces. Satan, one hand, Christ, the other.
Parents have the right to opt out of anything. They don't need permission.
Defending Utah covers the stories others are just too often afraid to touch.
If you leave it to just what? The people? You've got to place the ownership of those lands in the state of Utah and expect that the state of Utah will manage those.
The Americanist way really is stewardship, individual ownership. We've just been promised, Representative, by you that this will keep our lands in public. The source of all wealth is coming from the land.
We're all speculating at this point because, as you know, Article 5 does not have a lot of direction on what the process would be.
They don't nibble around the edges when it comes to pointing out threats to our liberty. They're not afraid to name names and call out organizations.
This is Defending Utah Radio on K-Talk 1640, every Saturday at 1. To learn more about Defending Utah or to become an activist member, visit defendingutah.org.
Welcome back to Defending Utah Radio right here on AM 1640, where we're from Defending Utah, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. We have a packed show for you today. We have Ammon Bundy, who I don't think needs any introduction. And then after that, we'll be joined with the latest on Count My Vote, a battle going on right here in Utah. And so I think what I want to do is just before we get into, I don't think we should get into anything right now. Well, one thing I want to get into is Orrin Hatch just announced that he wasn't going to run for re-election. And right after that, on the Defending Utah Facebook page, we posted our radio show about exposing Mitt Romney and who he really is. And it was interesting who came to his defense. So go to the Facebook, our Defending Utah Facebook page, and look. It was literally communists coming to Mitt Romney's defense. Look at all of their avatars. They all had hammer and sickle or the white and black flag. It was communists coming to the defense of Mitt Romney. Hilarious. So you can check that out of the Defending Utah Facebook page. But without any further ado, I want to welcome Ammon Bundy to the Defending Utah radio program. Thanks for being on with us, Ammon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited myself to be able to speak to you one-on-one. We spoke the other day, and I'm really excited to hear what you had to talk about. One thing I forgot to ask you in advance, though, was I don't want to take any time away from what you wanted to talk about, but if somebody has a question, if we have somebody calling in, is that okay, or do you want to kind of, or is our time really limited and we need to just get right to it and not get bogged down with callers? What would you rather?
No, I think callers would be great. I really don't have an agenda. I just want to talk, kind of get a feel for what you guys are doing, and if we, obviously I want to make a few points, but I would love to have callers. Awesome.
So anybody listening, please call in to K-Talk, 801-254-1640. That's 801-254-1640, like AM 1640. And ask your question of Ammon Bundy. We're also streaming live on Facebook and at ktalkmedia.com, so you can listen anywhere in the world. So Ammon, just kind of everybody, I really liked what you said the other day when we were speaking about not you're done entertaining people, but at the same time, I think we need a couple of just updates. What's going on right now?
As far as the case, as far as my family goes and our situation, a couple weeks ago, a little bit before Christmas, our trial was deemed as a mistrial because of willing government misconduct. Mm-hmm. And they were not disclosing discovery, hiding truth. They accused us of some overt acts in the indictment, and then tried to cover up and hide basically evidence, exculpatory evidence, of which exculpatory means evidence that would exonerate us. They tried to cover that up. And of course, we lived it. We were there. We knew what was going on. In particular, snipers that they had put around our home and threatened us with. They tried to deny that they were there, and we knew they were there. So obviously we kept digging and digging, and the discovery had little pieces and bits of it. And to make a long story short, we finally got that in front of the judge, along with several other things. And she allowed us enough agency to prove that they were withholding that evidence willfully, and so she had to rule mistrial.
Right. So, go ahead, sorry.
As far as my situation now, so I am actually out of prison. I spent 22 months in there. My brothers are out, and all of us are out except my father, and there's some that in the first trial that was not able to talk about the things that would have exonerated him. There's two men that were convicted, and they're still in there. Mm-hmm. And I am on what they call a pretrial restriction release. And so I can't leave Clark County, and I can't go home. I live in Idaho.
Right. And so when do we hear what the final word is? What are they, if they're going to just dismiss it, or if they're going to retry it? When do we know?
On Monday.
On Monday. Oh, good. Okay, just a couple of days.
Yes, on Monday. Well, anyway, she's having a hearing on Monday. She might not make the decision.
Okay.
We have a hearing, and most likely she'll make the decision, but not for sure.
She doesn't have to.
No, she can take it. She can take as long as she wants, but ethically she could take up to literally, a couple months.
Wow. Gotcha. So what are some of the things that they might be talking about on the hearing on Monday besides dismissal?
Well, really, the hearing is whether a double jeopardy should be attached or not. So whether we have been tried, and that is it. And so, and really what it comes down to legally, that if the government caused the mistrial, then it should be that jeopardy should attach, is really what it is. And so the hearing is going to be whether the government caused it or not.
Okay.
And, I mean, that's pretty obvious whether the government caused it or not.
Right.
But to get into probably more what we want to talk about, they don't follow any laws. There is no rules. they do what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it, and the people suffer because of it. And that's what we've learned. I just spent 22 months in prison learning that lesson.
Right. And that's the thing I think people forget about is that, everybody talks about, if we allow the Bundys to get away with this, that's just anarchy. Well, that's actually the exact opposite. You guys are enforcing the Constitution, enforcing the law. And it's actually the government that's engaged in anarchy, meaning it's lawlessness because they're not being held to any law. They're just doing whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah, if for someone to make that statement, it shows their ignorance in what truly the law is. Both, and I'll say this because I believe that I'm probably talking to most of the audience is an LDS audience. I imagine, I might be wrong with that, and it certainly is not exclusive to the people of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. However, to make a statement like that shows complete ignorance in both the law that was laid the laws that laid the foundation of this country, and also the scriptures, and including the modern revelation.
Absolutely. That understanding what the law actually is, we've done several shows on that, and what the law is, the constitutional law of the land, which is the Constitution. And getting back to the LDS aspect of it, we learned in Doctrine and Covenants 98 is whatever is more or less than what preserves liberty and the rights of man is unconstitutional. And so it's clearly that they're violating the law, and that what your efforts are doing are actually enforcing the law.
Yeah, the Lord in 98 clarifies what the law of the land is and what man's law is, and then also what God's law is. And he clarifies what those three are. And he says, of course, we know we have to follow God's law. And then he said that we're supposed to support the laws of the land that are constitutional, supporting the laws are supporting the principles of freedom. And then he goes on and says,
oops. Oh, crud. Oops. Sorry, everybody. We just lost Ammon real quick. We're going to fix this, and we'll get right back to him. I get to work the phones myself today, so we get to deal with my running around as we're waiting for Ammon, for Shazad to come in, Enoch Moore to come in. Let me just get back Enoch, and let me play something for everybody real quick while we get Ammon back.
are you there?
Oh, you're there. Oh, good. I didn't lose you. Okay, I was afraid I lost you. We got you.
It cut out, but
you called back. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, we got you. So go ahead and continue on that thought process of understanding what the law is, and it really vindicates what you've done. Going back to what happened in Oregon, people accuse you of breaking the law, and but that they've been all proven completely wrong, and they should be ashamed of themselves. There's a lot of false patriots out there that at the time, and they still have these publications out there like the American Lands Council and the Sutherland Institute came out and called you guys the threats to liberty. I mean, that just blew me away when they dared to say that you guys were threats to liberty. But now that you won the case because of a jury dismissed it and said you were innocent, and now that all the obvious government abuse that's coming on, now they're pretending that they were on your side the whole time.
Yeah, and again, I've been in prison. I don't really know who supports us and who doesn't.
Right.
But again, those scriptures very clearly lay out what is the law of the land, what we are to support, and it says that when it comes to the laws of man, anything less than this cometh of evil. That's what it says.
Yep.
And so.
And then it says to shun all evil, and so. If it's so, we can see that we're supposed to not go along with a law that's unconstitutional.
Yeah, and there's, in my mind, of course, I'm tied directly to the land and the resources. That's what my family has used to make a living with for generations, and that's what I grew up doing, and so forth. And so maybe it's just my perception that when it comes to these land issues, there is nothing more important.
Right.
And the Constitution makes it very clear of what the federal government is supposed to do in relation to land ownership inside the state. And that has been thrown completely out the window. And when we have families that have used the land for generations and that their livelihoods are being destroyed, and literally the right to self-preservation is being denied to them, it's time to stand up.
Exactly. We're going to go to a break in about 15 seconds, and that's a key point there in the rights. We need to claim them, use them, and defend them. And we're going to try and do our best to take your phone calls at 801-254-1640. 801-254-1640. This is Ben McClintock with defendingutah.org, back with Ammon Bundy.
Tired of bureaucrats and tyrannical government? Defending Utah.
You got somebody else here helping out.
To find out more, stop by our office and pick up your passport notification today. DefendingUtah.org. Think right and wrong, not right and left.
When the fake news stations are slick as ice this winter, cut through with K-Talk Media, your favorite local talk station.
Hi, this is Stan Ellsworth. You may know me from BYU TV's American Ride. You know, outside of a good motorcycle shop, one of the places I like to hang out is at Colonial Flag. You can find all things American. Flags, framed art, decorations, almost anything that'll keep your Patriot heart beating strong. So if you want to make your home or office just a little more red, white, and blue, go to Colonial Flag in Sandy, Utah, or catch up with them online at colonialflag.com. Tell them Stan sent you.
Has your healthcare become too much of a burden? If so, there is a way out. Open enrollment is here. This is your chance to make the change to something new and more innovative and cost-effective. Liberty HealthShare is a health share nonprofit, and it's taking the nation by storm and bringing freedom back to the healthcare world. If you are ready to take control of your healthcare, call Liberty HealthShare at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
Peace Legal. We're a refreshingly different type of law firm. Other law firms charge clients by the minute. Sometimes you're afraid to call your lawyer because you're worried about the cost. Not with Peace Legal. You have the option in most cases between hourly billing and flat fee billing. With flat fee billing, you know how much your case will cost up front. One flat fee, no hidden costs, and no charges to speak with your lawyer. We specialize in family law, adoptions, divorce, prenuptial agreements, and enforcement of custody and support orders. We also work with businesses and nonprofits with planning, contracts, and employment issues. We also handle what we call life law matters. These are those cases that arise just by living life, buying a home, rental agreements, power of attorneys, and traffic and DUI matters. We have 5 offices in Orem, Ogden, Salt Lake City, Sandy, and Spanish Fork. Visit us at peacelegal.net. That's PEACELEGAL.net, or call us at 801-876-LAWS. That's 801-876-5297. Our consultations are free, and we will always support. Peace Legal. We're a refreshingly different type of law.
Okay. Sounds good.
My name is Garrett Smith, and I'm an attorney with Peace Legal Law Firm. Divorce is a very difficult.
We're on a break, guys, on Facebook. We'll be right back just in just a second. Got a bunch of calls coming in, and we'll be right back after the break.
Hey, Bryce. And Heather and Raul.
No hidden costs, one flat fee. We also understand.
So have there been calls coming in the whole time?
Yeah. Try to get Jeanette to do it, but she's like,
yeah, okay. All right, I'll handle it.
Okay, thanks.
Or call us at 801-876-LAWS. That's 801-876-5297. Peace Legal. We're a refreshingly different type of law firm.
Hi, this is Stan Ellsworth. You know, I know a little bit about history. I mean, me and that Harley and all. But social media, well, that's a mystery to me. So I turned to the good folks in Little Cloud. They helped me develop my social media. They call it an online footprint. I'm a pretty big guy. Little Cloud, they created a pretty big online presence for me. Let them help you. Call them 610-329-1244 or visit their website at www.littlecloud.tv.
Can't get enough Defending Utah Radio? Then follow us on Facebook and subscribe to Defending Utah's YouTube channel.
What?
DefendingUtah.org.
Yeah.
Right and wrong, not.
The press record. We're back on K-Talk AM 1640. This is the Defending Utah radio program where we think right and wrong, not right and left. And we have on the program today Ammon Bundy. Him and his family stood up against the federal government at their home there in southern Nevada. Also, after a little while later, they stood up for the Hammonds in Oregon. And their court case, they're going to be having a hearing on Monday. We've been talking about some of these principles of defending the Constitution, defending liberty, actually standing up for what the law actually is. Ammon, thanks again for joining us, and we're back from the break.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking about what the law was and some of the things that would be coming up with the case. We want to talk about some of the fundamental principles that you were standing up for. We talked about how, you know, it's this idea of our rights. We need to claim them, use them, and defend them. Can you expound more on that?
Well, I think the best way to maybe for me to do that is for maybe listeners a little bit to go through like what we went through of what brought us to those conclusions of, and that is, you know, here we are, ranching family, 5 generations since 1877, so 141 years this year. We've been ranching, and then you know, a couple decades ago, the federal government comes along and says that you can't do that anymore. And
when I tried to do it earlier,
no,
it hung up on him. Is that, did I do something wrong? Everything looks okay right now?
Yeah, you got him back.
He called back.
Where do
Oh, he
I
did.
like to originate from? You know, we begin to study
It should be okay.
It should be fine. By the way, it wasn't recording. I just started.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Studying and searching and trying to figure out really where their rights come from.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you know, well, not all of a sudden, but for 20 years.
Right.
20 years, then here comes the federal government with their army, literally, you know, on our own soil, and put our ranch under siege and threaten us and point guns at our families and throw us to the ground and beat us and you know, all these things. And then the people come together and they basically defend us, and it gets to become such a political issue and enough political pressure that the federal government backs off, right?
Right.
And so we're sitting there going, how do we maintain our rights? We know that these are our rights. I mean, we have deeded title to the grazing and the water rights, you know, on our range with the state of Nevada. There shouldn't be any dispute. Yeah, it seems like there is a dispute. And it seems like we're possibly going to lose our rights. So we start really trying to understand and praying and studying and pondering of what it takes to maintain and preserve rights. And we begin to understand these principles, and these are, you know, they're principles. They're not ours. We just have the privilege to start to understand them, and you know, that's what you're wanting me to communicate so that other people can understand them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that the same way that rights are maintained, which is to claim, use, and defend, is also the same way that rights are taken.
Right.
And so I think the best way to explain this, if I could, is look what the federal government is doing to the land in the West. Now, the people came out West, and they claimed a bunch of it. And the ranchers and private property farmers, which most of the farmland is turned into private property, and so on and so forth. But here in the West, The federal government literally come out and claimed it. They have got their maps and their surveys, and they have put their stamp on it. We see their signs all over, even though it was already adjudicated to other people and other uses. They have literally come in and just said, look, we're going to take all the unappropriated land. And so that's what they've done. How have they done it? They have literally just put their stamp on it. They put their signs on it. They put their boundaries on it. They've made maps saying it's theirs, and they have claimed it right on top of the other claims, such as my family and many, many others. You know, miners, loggers, ranchers, even private property owners. They have put their claim right on top of it. And they said, well, it's not yours, it's ours.
Mm-hmm.
And then they begin to actually use it. And we see in the ranching case, what they've done is they actually leased this land back to the original owners. And they've done it through contractual law, and they make money off of it. And so it becomes a beneficial use claim for the federal government. And so they are using it. And then when I saw at the ranch, at the Bundy Ranch, what they're willing to do if you say that it is not theirs, then they are willing to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the exact same things that we have to do and that people have to do to maintain rights. So I mean, I could go into quite a bit more there, and I don't know if I've explained it the best.
But it's not just land either. It's every aspect of our lives that, you know, nobody has a right to legitimately. But if they're going to try and claim it, like you said, and then use it and defend it, and we don't, then we've kind of given up our rights in those ways. And so it's not just land, I don't think.
No, it's not just land at all. It's everything. It's everything that it's all right. And let me give you an example. I have a fleet maintenance company that I started 20 years ago. And I also, before all of this happened, I built a software to manage shops.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, might sound odd, but the ranch wasn't big enough for all of us to make a living off of it. And I had to go find another way to make a living. So that's what I began to do. Well, so that software is my right? And it's worth something now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but how did I didn't buy that software from somebody. I didn't, so how does that become my right? And that's because I developed it. I was the first one there.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first one who had those ideas. And the idea alone wasn't enough. So then I had to make it so that those ideas can be used and to be developed and to be used. And then once I had that, I claimed them. That these are mine. I had these ideas first. I'm now using these ideas, and they're mine. And I got a copyright on them. And it's my right. And now those rights are worth something. I could sell them.
Mm-hmm.
I could trade them. But yet no one gave them to me. No one transferred them to me. I actually developed those rights. And that's the same thing the way the land out here was developed, the way all rights are developed. They're by first in right, first in time, first in right is what it's called, and beneficial use. That's how rights are established. And then once a right is established, then you could claim it. And the only way you can hang on to it is to use it. And then when someone comes to take it, you have to be willing to defend it.
Right. So, Ammon, we've got some callers that want to talk to you. Let's go to the phone lines. We've got Dean in Saratoga Springs first. And I did it again. That didn't work. Let's get you back. Oh, here we go, Dean. Yeah.
Anyway, I've been wanting to get a hold of you guys. I'll try to make it quick.
Okay.
I've been in the Nevada prison system for quite a while, and I know their laws. And you need to get kind of proactive on this, and you're really close. Your state should be defending you from the federal government. And what you need to do, and you have to get my number from Ben and call me later because we could go on for quite a while, is you need to simultaneously get a civil action going against the state of Nevada on property claims and international law. And I can give you all kinds
Just
of
go to it.
details.
Just pick it up.
Six, okay, because you know it's him.
laws on filing for abandoned property claims.
Gotcha, Dean.
nuisance,
Okay.
And
Sorry,
how
we've got to
those
let you go. We've got to get back to Ammon. Sorry, we've been switched. The phone lines are acting weird, Ammon. But the last caller just talking about a lot of the things that you're talking about claims and whatnot. And you made a good point, but I don't think we need to be getting into it right now since you didn't get to hear it and trying to redo it. But let me just hold on here on the make sure. Oops, I lost you again. Jerome, you're on the line? No. Okay. Ammon?
Hello?
Yeah, we got you. Okay. So let's, I think it's really important for people, we talked about this the other day.
Hello.
Can you not hear me? Ammon? Gotta love the phone lines.
Hello.
Okay. Ammon? This always makes great radio when the phone lines aren't working. We'll get you right back here, Ammon. Let's go to line 4. Can you hear me? We've got, no, let's see here. Let's just not use the phone for a minute. Fun stuff. Okay, so we're trying to get Ammon Bundy back on the radio show again to be able to talk about what they're doing, because I think, as we talked about before we went to the break, when we were talking to Ammon, we were talking about, hey Ammon. Hey, sorry about the phones being weird. But I think we've got you now, and we'll just we'll just stick to this. When I was talking to you, we talked about the how, with you being in prison, I think you've really given a good example or a good visual of what, you're going to the dance, right? But and while I'll have you tell that story, but it seems like people have forgotten what it was that you and your family were doing. And so we need to be able to bring us back to that. And so we're not just so distracted on the important thing of getting you back to prison, getting you out of prison and free again, you and your family free again. But what was it that you guys were doing in the first place? So kind of give that analogy, and then we can get into what it is that we need to get back to.
Well, the analogy is just that we're going to the party to go dancing. My family likes to dance, and on the way there, we fell in the mud, and so we don't get up and get out of the mud and get cleaned up and go home. We get out of the mud, and then we go back to dancing.
Right.
Or we go to the dance, and that's what we plan to do. And as far as what my family was doing, well, I don't want to give the wrong impression that my family was doing anything other than literally just defending our rights. But it's become more than that. For example, when we found out about the Hammond, and we've seen it many, many times with our neighboring ranches. At one time, there was 53 ranchers in the Clark County area that, all our neighbors, and now my dad is the only one left. And that's directly caused because of these abusive regulatory restrictions that they placed on these ranchers. Mm-hmm. And these ranchers were trying to negotiate with the federal government on their rights, and they lost them all. Because they allowed, again, not to, go into too much, but they allowed, again, for the federal government to claim those rights and say that they were theirs, but meaning the federal government.
Right.
And then they lost them. And so now my dad's the only one left in Clark County.
Wow.
That's ranching on his original rights. In fact, my dad is the only rancher in the United States that's ranching on his original rights.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, there was one other rancher Well, there was. So let me just back up. When my dad decided to nullify his contract with the Bureau of Land Management, the federal government, and to begin ranching on his original right, another rancher next to him, by the name of Keith Nate, same thing. And they stood together, but Keith Nate passed away. And all the other ranchers were like, "Oh, there's no stand against the federal government. You know, they're too big. They'll destroy our ranches. They'll destroy our, livelihood. We've got to compromise." Well, my dad and Keith Nate were the only two ranchers that withstood all these regulatory blows that the federal government was giving them because they weren't complying.
Right.
Keith Nate passed away, and that left my dad as the only rancher. And then after the Bundy ranch incident, where the federal government, all of that happened in 2014, another rancher nullified his contract and began to ranch on his original rights, making it where there was only two ranchers ranching on their original rights. And that other rancher is a man by the name of Leroy Finicum. And I think most know what happened to him. Again, on our way to a meeting to teach these principles that we were teaching, we were ambushed and he was killed.
Right.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that they took his life and then they threw my father into prison. And
like 2 years later, like it was bizarre. I thought how long they waited to go after your dad.
Well, they thought they had a good excuse, which was us going into the refuge there.
Right.
They thought they had a good excuse, and it's proven otherwise.
Exactly.
It's actually it's been extremely painful, and we've gone through a tremendous amount of suffering, but it has been the way that the Lord has wanted it because it has exposed them and continues to do so.
I think that's a really key point is sometimes, we're afraid to take action, but, sometimes the pain and suffering leads to a greater thing in the long run. And we can see that. And we're about out of time for what we have for today, which I hate. This is one of those topics that I could just talk to you for a long, long time, and that needs a long discussion to flesh out all the things because our culture has been changed so much to not understand what it is to defend our rights. We're brainwashed into thinking that whatever the government does is right, and if we don't like it, then we need to just beg our masters for our freedom back. That's not what the founding fathers did. That's not what the principles of liberty. That's not what our nation is founded upon. And so before I have to let you go, there's a couple of questions people have typed in on Facebook. Raul asks, will they bring up a lawsuit? Will they, meaning you, Ammon, and your family or anybody that you know of, bring a lawsuit against the federal government, and can you press charges against your accusers?
So there is no mechanism to press charges against our accusers. They have corrupted the system enough and have control of the grand jury where you cannot indict them. You can't even bring up charges against them, which is revealing in itself.
Right, completely.
We can do a lawsuit, and let's say we win because let's just say we bring up a lawsuit against the federal government.
Yeah.
In a federal court, with a federal judge, with federal attorneys. So the chances of winning are in that circumstance where you're suing the federal government in a federal court.
Right.
It's very limited and very difficult. But we have tremendous amount of evidence that would probably make it so we have a good chance of winning. But then, who pays the bills?
Right.
The American people do, the taxpayers, not the person that made the decision,
right.
Not the corrupt prosecutors. So, to be honest with you, can't see how liberty is going to be furthered through suing the federal government and making the people pay for their mistakes.
Well, and that's what Lavoie actually said on a show the week before he was killed. Was that's why these other organizations, the federal government loves them. They pretend to stand up for our rights, but the federal government loves them because they keep it in the courts.
Yeah, again, rights are not maintained in the courts. Rights are maintained by claiming them, using them, and defending them. And it doesn't matter if it's your car, your backpack or your home or a ranch, and they are not maintained in the courts. They're maintained on the principles of claim, use, and defense.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it at. I hope we can talk to you again real soon, Ammon, and I appreciate you being on with us.
Thank you for having me.
Ammon Bundy, you should make sure and keep track of that situation. The Bundy Ranch is on Facebook, and you can follow that and make sure you know what's going on with that situation. Now we go to the next thing. We've got some guests here on some specifically local issues that we want to bring to your attention about the Count My Vote. Now, fighting Count My Vote is so essential because the Count My Vote issue is basically bringing democracy into the state of Utah. And the federal government, to protect our rights, we have the Electoral College to make sure that California and New York don't control our elections. Now, in the state of Utah, we have the caucus and convention system to make sure that the politicians don't just go to Salt Lake and maybe St. George. So we've got two guests in studio to talk about, one guest in studio to talk about this topic, and I'd like you to introduce yourself, tell us everybody your name and who you're with and what's going on.
My name is Tina Horlocker. I'm chair of the Davis County Republican Party, and I am just here to answer any questions you might have regarding the current fight with Count My Vote and maintaining our caucus.
Great. So, well, kind of tell us what's going on. There's some new things going on with anything updates on the lawsuit that the party has against, that was in the 10th Circuit Court in Denver, and what are we doing to make sure that we preserve the caucus in Utah?
So there was a hearing, I believe that it was in October in the 10th Circuit Court. We're waiting for the judges to come through with a decision.
So they still haven't done that yet?
Correct. That could happen any day. In the meantime, as far as that goes, we're trying to maintain the lawsuit. Rob Anderson, who is the current chair of the Utah State Republican Party, has tried to end the lawsuit.
Because he's pro Count My Vote.
And so we are...
I don't mean to put you in that spot. I'll just say it, and I'm responsible for that statement.
Well, he ran as chair under the idea that he was for the caucus convention system.
Even though he signed the initiative.
He did sign the initiative. He since has said that the delegates understood that he had signed the initiative, and they still voted for him despite that. That is simply not the case.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, that's simply not the case. So anyway, we've been actually having to battle a lot. I'm also a member of the State Central Committee. And so we've really been having to battle a lot to make sure that Rob Anderson didn't usurp authority, because he does not have any authority to end the lawsuit.
Right.
And the State Central Committee members, we've been trying to make sure that as the governing body of the state party, that the lawsuit is maintained. I mean, it makes no sense to end the lawsuit since right at this moment we're waiting for a decision. At that point, when the decision comes through, we'll have 14 days to decide what our next step is. And so recently well, it's very intricate and there's so much there that, why don't you just ask me a question?
Okay, so I don't feel comfortable naming names on this topic right now just because slander and all that kind of stuff, but we know, Defending Utah knows that there are some pro-Count My Vote people that started anti-Count My Vote organizations to be able to kind of get people to spin their wheels, this false opposition idea. And so, but you guys are working to make sure that the convention, the caucus system is saved. What are some of the efforts that are going on right now to get people involved to be able to make sure that we really are working to preserve the caucus system in Utah?
Well, the caucus system, everybody needs to understand, is the great equalizer against money and name recognition. So the Count My Vote initiative is designed so that rather than going through a caucus system where the delegates vet the candidate, they just go out and they gather signatures and they get on the ballot that way. So literally, there could be, Count My Vote is trying to lower the threshold right now. It's a little bit different wherever you are, depending on what elected position you're running for, what county, as far as to how many signatures you need to gather.
Let's make it as confusing as possible.
But yeah, it is amazingly confusing. But they want to lower the threshold to about 100 votes. So Imagine
100 votes to do what?
100 signatures.
Oh, wow. To get on the ballot.
To get on the ballot. So imagine congressional.
So let's get 600 people on the ballot.
That's essentially what it is. So then at that point, it comes down to those who have the most money to put their name forward. I know that Mike Leavitt was in a closed session with the Utah House recently, and it was a closed session, so the media was not involved, and really the only thing that we know is what is the little that has been said. But I know that his reception was not favorable. They were not happy with him. And one of the legislators actually said to him, so you're telling me I have gone out and I've looked how other states have done it. Utah is the last holdout for the caucus.
Right.
Most
people don't realize that actually everybody had a caucus system until the early 1900s, and slowly each state has fallen by the wayside to the rich rule democracy thing.
Right. People are so frustrated with how things are going on in Washington, D.C. and in their own states, because they say we're electing these Republicans, but they're not making Republican decisions.
Right.
That's because anybody can go out and gather signatures. One of the judges asked one of the state lawyers, so you're telling me that Bernie Sanders can go out and he can collect signatures and he can be a Republican in a race?
Right.
And so they get it. So basically,
well, that's what happens everywhere. And of course, in Utah, when you know only Republicans can win a statewide election, and in most counties only Republicans can win, anybody that wants to win, no matter what their ideology is you have to be stupid not to run as Republican. So anyway, the state legislator asked Governor Leavitt, who's really behind all of this, really promoting and pushing this and funding a lot of it. So he, in another state, running a campaign is going to cost anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000, depending, even more than that, depending on what they're running for. But in Utah right now, candidates in the caucus convention system can run a race for $3,000 and be elected. So there's a huge difference there. So really, Mr. Smith is not going to Washington under the count my vote system, because unless they have the money in their pocket, it's just literally impossible. And there's no way to vet the candidate. There's no way for the people at large to be able to go ask candidates and study them, and the candidate can't do it either. How is the candidate supposed to go out and talk to every voter in the state of Utah? So really the only answer is through a caucus convention system where neighbors elect neighbors. It's nothing about extremism. They try to paint it as extremism. That's calling the voters extremists, because they're the ones that elected the delegates.
Correct. So they go out and you elect people who you know them because they're your neighbors, and you trust them. You vote for them because you trust them to go to the convention where they can vet the candidate and choose the candidate that most represents the values of your neighbors. So that's how we really protect.
And people say, well, that doesn't allow enough people to participate. And if you don't like who the delegates are, then maybe you should show up. It's kind of like the idea, right?
Absolutely. Freedom isn't free. It involves participation. It involves people being able to sacrifice their time to maintain their freedoms. But just like Ammon was just saying, that to protect our rights, we have to claim them, we have to use them, and we have to defend them.
Yeah.
So if we think we're going to maintain our freedom by sitting back in our homes and watching movies and eating Cafe Rio, we're losing our freedoms.
Exactly. And so if you're upset with the way things are, then you have to start doing something.
If you're upset,
you have to be the defender.
Then put on your calendar March 20th. Go to your caucus.
And if you don't like who is in office right now, I think that is it only for signatures? Can you start applying now, or can anybody start to file?
Anybody can file right now. And frankly, people who believe in the caucus and convention system, if they are just going by that route, they really are putting themselves at a disadvantage against those who are running and collecting signatures. And we saw that
because they'll be on no matter what happens.
Yeah, we saw that in Congressional District 2, where Chris Herod won at convention.
Well, that whole thing was just a complete fraud, with several counties accidentally, I'm using air quotes, sending ballots to non-Republicans.
Well, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things there that need to be looked at. But John Curtis, who lost at convention, but had the big names backing him and the money, easily won with Tanner Ainge splitting the vote.
Right. Which was his job.
Exactly, it was. And so there's a lot of problems there. We are a republic, and this is republicanism. We have elements of democracy within our government, but we are a republic, and the founders guaranteed us a republic, not a democracy.
Yep.
And democracy is practiced at the general election, where we go, and at the primary election if there's not.
But only to choose our representatives.
Right.
Not to actually write
right.
law. We're not having the mob rule to be able to take away your rights or to do anything like that.
And it's also, there's a check and a balance there with the caucus system, because we're not allowing just anybody to get to the ballot.
Right.
So that's a filtering process, and it's designed as a protection. We should love that. We should want that. We should hold that up and want to maintain that, because we don't want Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Or anybody like him to represent Utah and undercount my vote.
Especially under the Republican Party, even.
Absolutely.
There was a guy named Mike Leavitt that ran, not the governor Mike Leavitt, but a different guy named Mike Leavitt that got on the ballot for Congress as well. And if he had, but the caucus would have been able to, if he just went on the ballot and allowed people to believe that he was the former governor, the convention and the caucus people would have been the perfect vet to make sure he wasn't just somebody else named Mike Leavitt, which he was.
Right. Another example of that played out in Davis County, where we had a county commissioner who went to the caucus convention, and he lost a convention, but he had gathered signatures, so that forced it to the primary. He just plastered Davis County with his signs. And so when it came to the primary election, all they knew was his sign and his name, and he won.
Wow.
So, and then, at the general election, it's a shoo-in because there was no opposition.
How shallow are we that we allow a yard sign to tell us who to vote for?
Well, I just don't think people realize that's what's going on.
Right.
There's a real concerted effort to make the caucus convention system look extreme, look like it's made up of people who really don't represent Utah, and made us also look like we're very contentious, and but really we're just trying to maintain our rights.
We've got Gabe on line 3 that wants to ask a question about the caucus. Gabe, you're on K-Talk. This is Defending Utah Radio. I am Ben McClintock, joined in studio with Tina Horlocker from the Davis County Republican Party.
Thank you for taking my call. I was involved in this last presidential election from beginning to end. I was supporting Trump in 2015. I went to the caucuses up here in Davis County, and I saw some things that were so impure and disgusting when they were electing delegates that it was ridiculous. They specifically asked who we were voting for president. I told them Trump. I wasn't looking for one of the positions, but they avoided getting anybody in there as a delegate that was for Trump. I also saw things with pamphlets, whole pamphlets. You were supposed to get one piece of paper to vote for one presidential nominee. People had pamphlets. That's totally against the process.
I'm not quite sure what he's talking about.
Can you clarify real quick and ask, maybe bring it to a direct question?
Yeah, okay. In the caucus, when you go in, you're given a sheet of paper to vote for the presidential nominee that you want. You're given one piece of paper.
Gotcha.
Where I was, people had whole pamphlets of those little pieces of paper.
With a bunch of names on it, you mean?
Of the caucus. So my question to you is, what are you going to do to ensure that this never happens again?
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I ran 20 precincts. I was over a legislative district that had 20 precincts. I was responsible for every aspect of that. I have no idea what he's talking about. In every precinct, when they run their delegate elections, the neighbors can ask the delegates questions. They vet them to decide. So if they wanted to ask them the question, who are you going to vote for? Who do you want for president? Then that's their right to ask that kind of a question.
That's how they're vetting you to know if they're going to represent you or not.
Vetting process, and that was a preferential vote. It was not a real vote. We were not voting for president.
You're voting for who to represent you.
Well, it was really kind of
Like a straw poll? Or?
Yeah, it was like a poll because the Electoral College is the one that actually is the one that, and I mean, that's a whole nother topic.
We've got about a minute left. So we've got Tina Horlocker from the Davis County Republican Party joining with us, talking with us about the caucus, preserving the caucus system. And you guys have started an organization up there. I know you've been working with organizing people together to be able to defend the caucus system. What are some things that you would like our listeners to do? Kind of the call to action. What do we need to be doing?
Well, there is keepmyvoice.com where you can go to. There's all kinds of educational material there that you can look at and find out all you want to know. It's .org. Okay, keepmyvoice.org, where you can find out all kinds of information about the caucus and really understand the process and understand that Count My Vote is some of the most deceptive messaging out there because really it's buy my vote.
That's the exact opposite.
Yeah, it is.
It's all just Orwellian doublespeak.
You are not being represented under Count My Vote. Your vote is being watered down.
The president's reaction?
We just went to a break. So this has been Ben McClintock from Defending Utah Radio. Think right and wrong, not right and left. Join us next week on K-Talk AM 1640 for Defending Utah Radio.
Somebody's able to have something, do something like that.
Sorry about that. Computers. Okay, guys, thanks for joining on Facebook. We'll see you next week.